I am Matt Lee. I am a musician. I'm the founder of Tortoise. I'm from New Orleans, Louisiana. Um, Started playing drums when I was 8 years old. Been a musician my whole life. Um, Picked up a few other instruments, piano, guitar. Started doing some sound engineering for friends who were rappers. Got into music production. Kind of all of that in high school. I ended up going to college for music industry studies. And there I got into more sound engineering, specifically live sound engineering. And I did that for a few years after school and a few years during school, just doing live sound engineering for concerts, speaking events, stuff like that. And decided that wasn't me, that life wasn't for me. I met a lot of jaded, middle-aged sound engineers, and I could see my future there and didn't look like a good one. So I got into software development at that point and went to school for that a little bit. Uh, didn't didn't graduate, but learned a lot of good stuff. And I ended up joining this hackathon in New Orleans, which was put on by this accelerator there called Idea Village. And there I met my friend Theo, and we built this project called Proof of Listenership Platform, PULP for short, POLP. And we ended up winning that hackathon. It was like a crypto music thing. And so that ended up with getting a little bit of support from this accelerator. And we worked on that for like a year, but it didn't really end up going anywhere. I actually remember very clearly the day we started looking for fundraising was the day FTX collapsed. So yeah, not the best timing, and also very was very inexperienced. Um, yeah, and actually through that is how I found out about Farcaster, because I applied to the A16Z crypto startup school, and on the application it asked, "What's your Farcaster username?" And I said, "What's that?" And so I looked up Farcaster and made an account just so I could get on the application, and that was in late 2022, and it was kind of love at first sight when I saw Farcaster. I remember because I had really bought into the whole vision of Web3 as oh, like this is the internet that you own, um, blah blah blah, and it wasn't until I saw Farcaster that I actually saw the thing. I remember just reading through the Farcaster docs and opening up their desktop app they had at the time, and just saying like, "Oh, this is the thing I've been reading about. This is the thing that people have been talking about with this whole Web3 thing." Uh, and yeah, I guess so. The pulp thing didn't really work out. I worked for a few other startups for a little bit as a software developer, and then in well, I guess about 3 weeks ago, I launched Tortoise, which is in its current form, it's a music mini app on Farcaster. Overall, the vision is kind of to be a general music ecosystem collective built on Farcaster.
Nice. Well, appreciate the story. Obviously, you and I have spoken before. You've been helping me out with the podcast a bit, which I greatly appreciate. And we've been, before that, back and forth on Farcaster for a while. I like what you said about when you saw Farcaster, you sort of like saw the thing that you've been sort of hearing about and imagining for so long. I felt largely the same way, and I think that thing has only continued to become more and more of that thing since starting. Like it sounds like we started on Farcaster around the same time. It was kind of just a Twitter clone, roughly, with a lot of crypto people there. And then now there's, mini apps and Warplit and in-feed transactions and in-feed token launchers, and like it's a very much, it's all crypto. And it's just like when people ask me why would they want to be on Farcaster or Warpcast versus Twitter, it's like I used to say, well, it's just I kind of like the community there. It's good people, a lot of builders. You can get more sort of like civil interactions in replies than Twitter, which is either like low quality stuff or dunking. Most of the time, like you can actually like sort of
Mhm.
ask a question and get like sort of interesting responses. So it was the people that I thought set it apart originally, and still do in a lot of ways. But the actual capabilities of the platform or the network at large have really developed over the last couple of years, and I think will continue to do so. And I definitely want to talk about Tortoise, latest app that you've launched, which had a really nice reception. And I think we could certainly use one or more music apps on Farcaster, and just in general, music apps and podcasting apps both like leave a lot to be desired for me personally. Like Apple Podcasts and Spotify both are pretty brutal. And then on the music side, like I've used Spotify for a long time primarily, but recently I've been using just my Apple Watch and laptop more instead of a phone. And Spotify, for whatever reason, is always glitching on my watch. So I've sort of switched to Apple Music, which also kind of sucks.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's, I'm very open to like new apps in both of those areas. And I know Tortoise isn't contemplated necessarily as like a replacement for those things, but you start with people who are in the Farcaster network posting music and whatnot, and who knows if and as Farcaster becomes a very big thing, who knows how it could potentially develop from there. But one question that came to me like sort of towards the beginning part of your story actually was, do you remember what your first, like, do you remember some of your earliest memories in regards to music? Because like obviously music has played a huge part in your life, like even when after childhood and high school and studying and your first jobs, you were sort of disillusioned by the people in those jobs to realize you wanted to try something else and go to software engineering. Even after all of that, here you are, software engineering a music app, you know what I mean? So it's like
Yeah.
obviously it's a big piece of your life, and I'm curious if you have any recollection of sort of like some of the earliest moments where you really started to get into it.
Yeah. The earliest memory I think I have, um, well, there's two. One is we were listening. I think we were like I was in the car with my family, and the song "Hey Jude" by the Beatles was playing, and my brother, I think, who is also a musician, was talking about some of the instruments in it, and and he said like something around like, "Oh, do you like hear how the drums are doing that thing?" And I just said no. Like I couldn't. Like I couldn't like set apart the like individual instruments in the sound. All I heard was like just
Like
this
how
this
old? Like how old are you at this time, and how old's your brother?
uh so like I'm like 6 and my brother's 12 probably.
Okay, okay.
Um
Fair to not be able to distinguish instruments at 6.
yeah, I mean a lot of adults can't do it to be honest.
Yeah, that's true.
Uh but yeah, I don't know. I just remember it just had me. I don't know. It just had me thinking so much about like uh the way that you can hear things, but you have to really you can hear things. Just because you hear something doesn't mean you're listening to it.
Right.
And that's a skill that I've still built up as an adult of like to listen between. I mean, especially as a sound engineer, like for instance, I know people who you know, uh, they'll listen to music on their phone, like just through the phone speakers, and be perfectly fine with it. Which is great. More power to them. But like when I hear that, it's literally like I'm listening to half of the song because like there's all these frequencies that are like all the bass frequencies are missing, and it's just like it's very I'm very aware of it. Um, and then the other memory I remember was going to this music store with my family, probably around the same age as the other story, like 6, 7 maybe. And because my brother was a musician already at that time, good bit older, and I just had there was this like drum practice pad, and I was just kind of obsessed with it for some reason. Like I just remember like it also had like a key. Like drums have like you can tighten and loosen a drum head, and you use something called a key to do that. And I was just obsessed with this drum, like with the key, and just tightening and loosening it. Uh, like more so than yeah, just yeah, just like this, just random, like inexplicable obsession with the this little drum practice pad. And then I
That's
started,
funny.
yeah, and then started playing drums a year or two later.
So drums was first.
Yeah, drums was first. Still the instrument I'm most comfortable on, especially when I'm playing with other musicians.
Are you playing with other musicians a lot these days, or mostly like I see, I know you've got videos like playing the guitar and singing and things like that. Are you doing band stuff as well, or not so much?
Yeah, so I'm playing drums in a band called Moon Blossom, which is a bit of a new thing.
Blossom, you said?
Moon Blossom, Moon.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the singer of that band is actually on Farcaster as Moon Blossom.
Oh,
Uh,
nice.
yeah, I got him on there pretty recently, and
You got him posted on Tortoise yet?
yeah. So we've got a song called "Wanted More" on Tortoise.
Nice. What how many people are in the band? What instruments? And yeah, I don't want to overwhelm the questions, but maybe you can. This would be a good time to do the quick summary on Tortoise and what it is.
Okay, so the band Moon Blossom is me on drums, Jay is the singer and bass player, and then we have Liz. Liz and Ben. Ben is my brother. They're both guitarists. Ben is the lead guitarist. Leads. Liz is the rhythm guitarist. And yeah, it's like a indie rock. It's been described as hippie punk band. I don't even know what that means, but that's what Jay likes to say. So, uh, and yeah, so what Tortoise is just it is basically the best way to think about it is probably it's the best way to share music on Farcaster. You can
Music of your own, as opposed to, or other people on Farcaster, as opposed to like mainstream artists.
right, so it's music on your own. So it's more like Bandcamp than Spotify or
Right.
something like that. Uh, so yeah, you can share your own music. The way maybe an easy way to think about it is like a cross between Bandcamp and Twitter, or Bandcamp and Facebook, or whatever. So it's because I think a big aspect of what these music platforms are missing is something social. And as a musician, that's like it's actually kind of a big struggle of the way to get your music. The way to get people to listen to your music is through social platforms. The main ones are Instagram and TikTok, and those aren't music platforms. So
Yeah, the bridge from those social platforms to the actual music player is like really, really weak, basically.
exactly, and the format is also different. It's not audio. So
Right.
basically, if you're a musician and you don't have uh, skills, if you're not making really good short form video content and you're a musician, you're not going to be successful on a large scale, almost universally at this point.
Yeah. That's the same for podcasts.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and
Which is
you
a
know,
shame because I think any musician any podcaster, your you know your thing that you're trying to be great at is the long form thing, the podcast or the song or even the album as a whole, and yet your you know arena for competition is being judged upon TikToks and clips, basically. Like it's your clipping skill or your TikTok skill that's actually determining success to some degree.
Yeah, yeah, and it's and that that's always been the case through I'm thinking about the famous story between when the like JFK versus Richard Nixon election, when JFK was the one who figured
Put
out how to
that on
present
TV.
himself. Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah,
so I mean it is an issue of like it is a an issue that's never going to go away. Of you have to adapt to the formats people want to consume. But yeah, I mean I just know I'm a musician. I wish I could just make music, and I don't like having to do other things to promote it.
yeah.
Another really important aspect of what's happened with music is that it's probably been damaged by the internet more than any other industry as far as recorded music.
Why is that?
Well, because when basically the 90s is kind of considered the heyday of recorded music. People like bands were being getting like hundreds of thousands of dollars with no fan base just to get signed and just to see, because there was all this profit from CD sales. And and going back decades before that, the recorded music industry was this big giant industry that people were making a bunch of money from. And when music became digital, you had Napster, you had file sharing, and basically what happened was music became water. It became unlimited. It lost its scarcity basically, and so
Right.
people stopped paying for it. And and we have, and that's when iTunes came along. That's when Spotify came along. Eventually, to kind of, I wouldn't say solve that problem, but I guess it was an attempt to. And but we're still in a place where the recorded music industry. I'm forgetting what the numbers are, but it's just so far. It's just you make so much less money from recorded music than you used to, and so artists today, like even the big ones who actually do make good music on streaming, they're making way more money from live music and from merch sales. And that's basically how the industry works now, is that your records are promotional content for your shows and your merch. um
Yeah, which is crazy again because it's like you're not being rewarded for the thing. I mean, some people are like special, like live performers, that's their thing. But for a lot of people, it's like you're using your main thing to drive people towards side things, which you probably don't care that much about, which are the things that actually make the money. Just sort of
yeah.
unfortunate. Um, but and like I wonder, we could talk about like obviously with Tortoise, you can collect music, so you might not need to listen to. I mean, you might not need to buy it to listen, but you can sort of support your favorite artists. We could talk about whether that actually is something that could meaningfully scale to sort of fix the current monetization problem for people recording music. The other thing I just wanted to sort of bring up as an analogy, I'm not sure how accurate it is or whatever, but I am more intimate, like as a consumer, my music listening experience hasn't really suffered as a result of everything you're describing.
Hmm.
And uh, but like yet the people are just the musicians are making less money, which is unfortunate. But it seems like it hasn't really stopped them from making, like it hasn't stopped great musicians from making music. in a lot of ways. Maybe in some, maybe it has in a lot of cases, but like there's still a lot for me to listen to. Um, but I posted on Farcaster the other day actually that like the '90s, like you said, was the heyday for music. I'm sort of more, to me, it's more obvious to me personally that like the '90s was like sort of the heyday for movies. Like there's just so many great movies from the '90s, and also like maybe the early 2000s to some extent, but really like the '90s, late '90s, or like anytime I turn on a movie from like 1996, 1997, or 1998, I'm like, man, this is gonna be great, and it's just like the depth is insane. Versus now, I don't know. Like, I don't know if I can name like three good movies that came out last year. And that's like, I don't want to be like overly harsh, but it's just, I don't find very many great movies anymore. And Six actually responded on Farcaster that like Matt Damon had this thing that he said about it, and like sent a link to his explanation of why movies aren't what they used to be. And basically it was like, uh, the industry relied on DVD sales as like a second burst of monetization post the theater release. And between the two
Mhm.
of those, you had a lot of flexibility to make like more niche movies that don't necessarily need to apply or be interesting to everyone. And therefore, I think they can be more interesting to smaller groups of people because they're just like by definition not as like mainstream commercial or whatever. And so you could sort of get away with doing those things because you'd have the theater release, and make some money there, and then you do the DVD release and make some more money there, and have sort of like a stream of revenue in perpetuity from that, potentially just ongoing DVD sales. And now I guess I don't know exactly how it goes, but like the theaters aren't as popular as they were, and then there's no DVD. It's just like probably a similar thing to music, you know, how they used to sell records and then CDs, and now it's just streaming. Similarly with movies, it used to be DVDs, and now it's just streaming. And I think just like the monetization on that is just like way lower per movie or per artist in the music industry and whatnot. And as a result of that, we now just have Avengers 7, 8, and 9 instead of like actual new like movies that are just about like things that you haven't seen before, basically. And I wonder if that like has, despite my finding music that I like still, has that had an impact on music, you think, where music has actually just sort of like aggregated to become more mainstream as a result of like people with more niche audiences just knowing that they basically like have no shot?
Uh, no, I don't think so. I think, uh, I
My
don't know.
my guess, just a quick thing, like my guess as to why that wouldn't be the same is that music you can sort of produce for low cost on your own from just like a passion for music, whereas music is just inherently more of a business to like make something happen. You need like a lot of funding, and so there's the musician who just wants to make an album doesn't necessarily need to do the math and get it approved, whereas like the maybe once they're signed or something, but the movie sort of has to do that. And if you can't justify it, then it doesn't get made, basically. Whereas the musician might not realize this isn't viable until after they've already like sort of produced some music.
Yeah, I mean, a movie it requires many people. It's like it's like this big project to take on, and a lot of music is too. But I mean, musicians are gonna make music. It's almost like breathing to the ones who really love it. So I mean, it's not gonna matter if they're making money or not. It's just gonna happen.
Are
Um,
you are you one of those people, you think, or are you not as extreme as some other musicians might be in terms of like their obsession?
no,
Like,
yeah,
will you
I
make
mean,
music forever?
yeah, I will. I mean, it's I'll always make music. I mean, I mean, that's where I'm coming from where I say that. And it's something I always keep coming back to. I've had phases where, uh, I think, oh, like I should try to get into other industries, like, maybe I'm not good enough to really do this, blah blah. But it's just really, I've kind of figured out it's not really a choice.
Do
Um,
you care really how good you are, or is it a lot of it just the process of making, like, sort of, regardless of who or how many people listen, is enjoyable in and of itself? Or is there a piece of it that, like, you want to do it because, uh, it might get sort of like, you might sort of have that song that actually, like, a lot of people end up listening to?
Both. I mean, I very much care how good I am. I want to be good. But you know, I if that was all I cared about, I wouldn't do it because um
It's too
I
hard.
mean too hard and too like vulnerable. Like I mean, singing is like a kind of a good example because it's a kind of a vulnerable thing, and it's something that um well, at least I used to think I wasn't very good at it, and uh I just kind of realized that it's just like something I love to do so much. Like to not to like to rob myself of doing that because I don't think I'm good at it would just be such a disservice to myself, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so many other benefits of, like, doing the things that you love, regardless of the specific outcome. It's not. It's very different because I don't know that it's necessarily art. But podcasting, there's an analogy for me, which is that, like, a lot of people go into podcasting or don't go into it because they think that the point of it is to, like, build a big audience and, like, have some massive podcast. And it'd be awesome to have a big audience, and then you can monetize it, and you could, like, just, you know do the Joe Rogan life or whatever. That'd be great. But um, to go into it with that being the main thing, or to not go into it because you don't think you have a chance at that, I think, like, keeps a lot of people who would otherwise enjoy the activity of podcasting, and sort of like the fruits of it, other than that one single outcome that's possible. Like, it keeps them from doing it. And then similarly for me, like, if I was only doing it for that, um, I would have stopped a long time ago, because it's just like, I'm looking at my audience numbers over years, and, like, they haven't really compounded. And it's like, well, what am I doing here? So it's
Right.
because I enjoy every other piece of the process and the activity in and of itself that I podcasting isn't like breathing for me. I'm not as obsessed with it or passionate about it. I just really enjoy it. I think it's worthwhile. It's like a great thing for me to do, especially with this new setup where I can go for a walk and do it. It's like, recently I've been
Mhm.
working pretty hard, and podcasting and taking a walk during it has been, like, sort of my primary form of exercise, which maybe is a little sad, but is quite enjoyable nonetheless. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I think it makes a lot of sense, basically, why you do what you do. And I feel like as you've, you know, broadened your skills and stepped into, like, software engineering, and you can maybe find, like, I mean, Tortoise is a great example of sort of combining your interests. Like, you can continue to make music, but you can also sort of, like, live and work in and around music in ways that are maybe a little more tangential. And, like, sort of like, if you're working on Tortoise years from now, you would presumably be, like, spending every day with, like, different artists, and listening to music and making music, and all of these things would be sort of in the realm, even if you're not, like, music. Being a musician yourself isn't sort of the primary thing necessarily.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I mean there's a lot to get into there, but yeah, I mean I think you have to like the idea of, you know, the idea of trying to calculate like, oh, what's the best course of action for me, right? Like the idea of just like trying to like use logic to like figure out your next move all the time rather than like doing stuff you're just kind of naturally gravitated towards, I think is just kind of um you know, it's kind of arrogant to think that like you'll be able to figure out what's best for you rather than just like naturally what you want to do. um
Interesting. I agree with you completely, but I've never actually thought of it as being arrogant, which is a very interesting comment. And I guess what you mean is, like, to think that your logic can sort of like beat uh, your like intuition or something. It's almost like arrogant, like not as a whole, but on the part of your like logical mind in a way, because the other part is still you, right? Like you're still navigating life according to your interests or what you're attracted towards doing. It's like it's still you following something like sort of
Right.
internal in a way. But the other version, the version that you're saying you don't think is a good idea, which I agree with you, is like trying to be super prescriptive as to like assuming you can predict the future and the outcome of things and try to be overly logical about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know who said this, but it's something I think about a lot. It's like when you talk to yourself in your head, there's a voice who's talking, and then there's a voice who's listening.
Yeah.
And the voice who's listening, in my opinion, I don't know. I guess everybody's different. For me, the voice who's listening is, what I try to follow, and I think that's like who's really yourself. And
Right.
another thing I think about is how Steve, it's like a famous Steve Jobs quote of just like having faith that the dots will connect, because
Yeah.
he studied like fonts and art and all this stuff. Ended up helping with Apple, and that's how. I mean, that's. I mean that applies to me looking back on it for sure, and that's how I got into crypto at all in the first place, was because as I studied the music industry, and I went to college for it. We talked about all the time how the digitization of music just wrecked the industry. And and I remember listening to, like, before the NFT. It was a few months before, like, Bored Apes and like the NFT thing really took off. I was listening to an interview with Vitalik, and I'm not sure, but when your interview with Vitalik was on your other podcast, but
Hmm.
it might have been. It honestly could have been that one.
That'd be
Um,
funny. It was in the summer of 2020, like probably like maybe like August or September of 2020 ish, maybe October.
yeah. So I mean, a high probability it was that podcast. But
That's super
what?
funny.
But I heard Vitalik say, "Oh, you can apply scarcity to media," and when I heard, just alarm bells just started going off in my brain when he said that, and I and that's really the reason I'm interested in crypto beyond just like holding Bitcoin or whatever. Um, yeah. So
Interesting. Yeah, it's I don't know if that was on mine. I don't recall that. It would be funny though if it was, and it'd be funny if this line on like we definitely didn't talk about media for a while, but maybe there was a line in there at some point about it for some reason, like tangential to something else we were talking about. And it would be funny. Like so many of my podcasts, like they were great conversations and whatnot, but like I don't have an amazing rote memory, and that's probably uh, understating the fact. Like I have like I would say like a pretty not great memory. Like I
mhm.
continue underestimating it. I have a pretty bad memory, basically. And so it's funny, like I do all these podcasts and like, you like to think that you're picking stuff up along the way, like knowledge and nuggets of wisdom and whatnot. And I do think that I am and that I have, but it's in a way that's not as easy to recall. Like I can't be like, oh yeah, I learned this from this. It's like more just the accumulation of experience and conversations over the years, that just sort of like learn. Maybe they sort of like help to guide that sort of instinct, but or intuition. But also, what the Steve Jobs quote, one of my favorites of all time that you mentioned, by anyone, on anything. And then the voices thing is also interesting. I don't know if you're familiar with this book called The Untethered Soul.
No, not.
Uh, Really good book. I'm not like super into this category of books, I would say, like Eckhart Tolle, if you're familiar with him, and other people like that. This one is, I
Mhm.
think the author's name is Michael Singer, and He's got a few books. This was the only one that I read though, and it was probably one of the most impactful books I've read, top three or five. Um, and the core takeaway from it basically is exactly what you said, that, or at least for me, the core takeaway is like this voice that you're constantly, hearing, if you will, is not you, and you are the witness, is what, this book says. Like, and that's
Mhm.
what you're describing as the person who's listening to that voice. And it's just a super helpful concept. I don't think of it day in and day out necessarily, and maybe you should, maybe you shouldn't. I don't, I'm not like sort of here to argue or debate that, but it's definitely useful sometimes. Where, for example, if you're like really angry or really sad, you can separate yourself from that emotion by realizing like that is it's always the other thing, like the non-witness that's sort of really angry because you're noticing that you're angry. And so if you're noticing that you're angry, like that's not the angry. And that concept was just super helpful to me. At a certain point, I can't remember, like, must have been, I don't know, like, I can't remember why I was down at this time, but I was down at this time when I read that book. It was like around college, and I just like most of college was pretty good. So I can't really remember when or why this was, but um, at the time I was feeling pretty down, and then I read this book, and I was like, oh man, it's just like totally like cleared me, and it's great. So I recommend it to people a lot. Um,
Cool.
but but yeah, so I know we're sort of coming up on time here, but we've done some of the more philosophical stuff. We've introed Tortoise. Maybe you could talk a little bit about like next steps that you're thinking about on Tortoise. Like, I don't know. I know, off the record, you mentioned how, not that it's like something that needs to be off the record, but just before we started recording, you were like, talked about launching Tortoise mostly because it was something that you wanted, which I think is this is one of those things that I actually have picked up from all these podcasts that I've done with like a lot of really great founders is you just start to sort of like recognize, you know, various patterns that you could sort of maybe read in like a tweet, but they don't resonate as strongly as when you hear the story over and over and over again. People always start these, not always, but very more common than anything else. The start of a great startup is like unintentional, and they just sort of fall into it. And a lot of times it's just doing something that they wanted to do or making something that they wanted to see in the world for themselves. And it sounds like that's very much how Tortoise got started. But now that you've put it out into the world and a lot of people liked it, do you have, are you planning to work a lot on this moving forward to develop certain pieces of it, or what's like sort of the next steps in your mind? Or it's also fair to say like you don't really know.
Yeah. So, I yeah, all that you said is true. I made it for myself. And yeah, I mean that was cool. I mean, it was just cool. Like the day I launched it, I also released a song with it, and yeah, I don't know. I like releasing a song, uh, like having like releasing an app along with my song that, and the song is on the app as promotion for the song is is one of the funnest creative things I've ever done. Um,
Yeah, I was
and
listening. This is Veins, right?
yeah, that's right.
And what's
And
the it's a good song. I liked it. Is what's the difference? Like what's the name? Hug Hassle. That's the artist name on it. Is that that's your musician name? Because I know is your handle for a brief while. A
yeah,
while might be a strong word. A brief moment.
yeah. I was experimenting with some other handles and um,
Is it Hug Ass Hassle or the
yeah.
other thing?
Yeah. But a lot of people, because when it was my handle, it was just one word. So most people thought it said Hugh asshole. And but yeah, it's the so that I mean that is really the I mean that just goes along with like I know we already talked about like some philosophical things, but that's really just kind of the theme of my life recently, and that's kind of one example because I was basically like probably 2 years ago at this point. I was just journaling, and I wrote the term "huge hassle," and I just accidentally wrote hug hassle,
Hmm.
and I couldn't, I just, for some reason, I just couldn't stop thinking about it. And like, I just thought about it all the time for a year.
Hmm.
And basically, like, it's weird because my, like, consciously, I'm not like super crazy about it as a name. Although I do like it, but it's just, the way I think about it is that, like, subconsciously, I made it like like turned this negative thing into a positive thing.
Hmm.
And for whatever reason, it's just sticking to me. Uh and I needed a new artist name, or I wanted one, because my name Matt Lee is like, it's hard. You can't search for, like, there's a bunch of other Matt Lees in the world, and even on music streaming platforms, so it just makes it really hard to promote, to find my music. So
The positive spin on that I'll give you is I've always like I've in order to achieve pseudonymity on the internet, I drop my last name because Jake is popular enough that it sort of achieves the purpose without making up a new name, just first name only. And I've
right.
always been a little bit envious of people with their full name is like Matt Lee is pseudonymous by default. You can just be Matt Lee, and if you don't show a picture of yourself, no one knows which one you are.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a great point. Yeah, and I'm still, I don't know. Hug Hassel is what I'm going with right now. It's still I don't know. It's funny because people still like don't know how to say it. Like when I say like that, I don't know. People get kind of confused about it, but I kind of, I don't know. I kind of like it, and I like that it's not. I don't know. I like that it's kind of weird and just like doesn't really make that much sense to people, and it's just like, uh, I don't know, because I think that's the way I am a bit,
Is
and
it
so
is the so there was huge hassle, which is like where it derived from. Is there was the like huge asshole thing like a part, like was that intentional at all, or that's a misread by everyone who gets confused?
that's a
Like, do you
mystery.
like that? You don't like that component? Like, that's not an intentional thing, right?
Uh, it's not intentional, and it's
Do you
not
like that? That's a mistake that people make, or not really?
not real. Well,
Yeah. That's what I sort of figured, and I think that's a mistake. That's what I assumed when I saw it. I'm like, oh, here's like hug hassle, but also like huge asshole. Even though like like it doesn't perfectly line up, but it's like I feel like that's what he's going for here. But it's not, and it's not the story. And the story is better than that, as you just told it. And like the longer form version of really, it's a misspelling, and for whatever reason, logic aside, just sort of like resonated and stuck with you, which is like a great name to make a name versus like the play on the other thing is just like not as good, and that's what people are sort of like assuming. And so I wonder if like you could have like a well, I don't know, this might actually make it even worse, but I was wondering if like you could have the name, but then like your like one of your sublines is like not an asshole or something, and it's like but then people might really think that it's a play on that word. Like, I don't know. It's a tough one, and it's not like sounds like you didn't sign up for this. You just wrote this thing that resonated and stuck, and now you're left to deal with it. And I mean, I agree with your like. I think you should just go for it as long as it continues to resonate, and if it stops, then you can move on.
yeah. I mean, yeah. I don't think that it's as much of a problem when you have the space between the words.
True.
So,
You can put a
uh,
dash, under underscore.
yeah, yeah. That's a good idea. Yeah. So, yeah.
Problem
Maybe
solved.
that's well. Yeah. Yeah. There you go. Um, yeah.
All right, I want credits one day when you're on tour, and you stuck with the name that you know. Uh, when the story is told in 20 years, you were just about to abandon the name, and then I recommended an underscore, and it was locked in forever thereafter.
Okay. Okay. I'll give you the credits.
All right, cool. Well, anything else before we wrap? I know we're up on time, but we can obviously do it again at some point in the future. But yeah, any closing words for Hardcastle fans or Matt Lee fans?
Um, no closing words. Yeah, I mean, I have a lot more to say about the vision behind Taurus, but that's okay. I also like to be. I'm also glad I'm not putting too much out there. And just yeah, I hope anyone who's listening checks out Tortoise, listens to some music. If you're a musician, post some music on there, and yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Well, great conversation as usual, and we'll talk to you soon. Hug
All right, see you, Jake. Bye.
later.